An amendment, Senator Farley.
Farley, floor amendment, House Bill 2312. Steve Farley.
Senator Farley.
Chair, I move that the Farley Amendment to House Bill 2312 be adopted.
Explanation?
Thank you, Madam. Members, very simply put, will add to this bill a provision that will ban driving while texting in the state of Arizona. Now, many of you know that I have been trying to get this done in Arizona for the last 6 years. I was the first legislator in the country to propose a ban on driving while texting in January 2007. Since then, 44 states, red states, blue states, purple states, paisley states, they've all enacted this ban. In polls, I've seen more than 90% of the Arizona public want a ban on driving while texting. They understand that this is something we should not be promoting or encouraging in any way in the state, and they understand we need a law to ban it. Now, this is not about politics. This is not about who's sponsoring what or who's doing what. This is about keeping our roads safe in Arizona. And I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for a number of people who have called my office over the years that I've been trying to champion this issue. First of which was a gentleman who called me in August 2007, 2 days after his wife had been killed in Peoria after a driver who was texting crossed over the center line and hit her head on. Both of them were killed. Neither that widower nor the woman's 2 children will ever see her again. This is for a constituent of mine in my district who was rear-ended by a texting driver, spent 2 months in the hospital. She's age 80. She sent me pictures of what she looked like. This is for 17 kids from the West Valley who were in my office 2 weeks ago who are trying to get involved in public service, and their number one thing they're working on is banning driving while texting in Arizona because they have seen what it has done to their friends and their family, the injuries they told me about. This is for the gentleman that called my office just last week, whose brother was run into by a texting driver on Scottsdale Road last October. He was burned over 2/3 of his body when his car burst into flames. He's still undergoing rehab. The studies and the science behind this show that you are 2,300% more likely to get into an accident if you are texting while driving. That is so far more of a danger than any other thing you could be doing while driving. So much more. I don't propose a ban on talking on the phone unless you have a hands-free device, because I've seen the science behind that. Science actually says if you're talking on the phone, it actually has a slight protective effect because you're staying awake, alert, and you're still looking through the windshield. But when you are texting while driving, you are more incapacitated than when you are drunk and driving. And we have a lot of laws on the books about drunk driving. I've heard people say we got a lot of laws in the books, there's already reckless driving, it should cover it with that. Well, if reckless driving covers everything, why do we have DUI laws? Why do we have speeding laws? We need a ban on driving while texting. And we need more as well. A law opens up the opportunity for us to be able to have the driver education curriculum include you cannot text while drive to everyone who's a new driver. It makes it very clear to everyone this is not an acceptable practice. Those of us who have that little cop in our heads that tells us what's right and what's wrong will have that cop strengthened when there is a law in place. But we also need education, and we also need enforcement. And those things will come in place once we have a law to ban this practice. I don't have to tell you, in Utah, they have one of the most stringent bans on driving while texting in the country, where you get life in prison if you cause a death when you're driving in prison and texting. Life in prison. This bill isn't anywhere near that severe, though I think maybe it should be. This bill has $100 for a first offense, $300 for a second offense, and $300 if you're involved in an accident while texting. It also requires that law enforcement officers indicate on a written accident report whether texting was involved so we can collect all the data necessary. I have yet to hear a single argument that says why we should not have this law. I've heard people say that we have to give people the liberty to do whatever they want to do, even if it's stupid. Well, I wonder about the liberty of that person who's run into and killed by a texting driver. I believe it's our duty as legislators, and certainly the scope of government, to protect people's safety when they're on the roadways, even our safety from others around us. We spend so much of our lives on our roadways. We need to make them safe. And we know that this is a dangerous practice. We have to make clear that in the state of Arizona, we will not tolerate it when you text while driving. So I don't care what party you are. I don't care what position you may have taken in this in the past. This is an opportunity now for us to make a statement that we can come together, stop anything else that may be getting in the way, and declare that we are on the side of our constituents as they drive on our roadways every single day. Their lives are in our hands, literally in this case. And I've talked to the people who know the effects of not having a ban in place. So I ask for your support for this amendment, and I ask for your support the rest of the way through. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I question the germaneness of this amendment to the underlying bill, and I ask for a ruling of the chair.
Okay, we'll ask the rules attorney to please come by. Okay, the rules attorney has ruled this amendment germane. Looks like Senator Melvin.
Madam Chair, a question to Senator Farley, if he would answer it.
Senator Farley, do you yield?
I would gladly yield to my friend from Oregon.
And I'd like to ask Senator Farley if he's talked to the sponsor of the bill, and if so, what the sponsor's view of your amendment is.
Senator Farley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Melvin, I have not spoken to the sponsor of this bill. However, given the difficult road that I know you are aware of as well, with sponsors of both parties, I've worked with you, I've worked with Representative Uri, I've worked with Republicans and Democrats alike. It has been a very difficult path. I don't believe that in this case, the position of the sponsor is nearly as important as the position of that widower I spoke to, the brother of the gentleman who has burns over 67% of his body, and the other people who are suffering on the roadways. I don't believe it's time for us to allow any blockades to get in the way of making this bill law at last in the state of Arizona.
Senator Melvin, further questions?
Madam Chair, I rise in respectful opposition to the amendment. A hostile amendment to this bill is not the way to solve this problem. This is my 5th year in the Senate. Every year I've run a no texting while driving bill, including this year. This year it was very narrowly worded, had the full support of every insurance company and cell phone company operating in the state, yet it failed to get through. And I'll most likely try again next session, but this amendment is not the way to do it. The bill that I sponsored this year and most likely will sponsor next year is the way to do it. It's responsible. It restricts the no texting to a very narrow window of teenagers when they're getting their driver learner permit. For a 6-month period, it's as narrow can be, and that's the way to do it. So with that, I oppose this amendment.
Thank you, Senator Melvin. The chair recognizes President Biggs.
Madam Chair, I rise in respectful opposition to my friend from Tucson's hostile amendment. And what I want to do is just briefly consider, he gave an impassioned statement. I'm not going to denigrate his convictions because I know they're real. But what I will do is I will talk to you about the philosophy of how we constructed and how other states have constructed their traffic laws. They do it generically. They do it generically so you can prosecute a wide variety of activities. For instance, if someone is driving down the road and they cross the center line and hit someone head on, whether it be caused by texting, drunken driving, eating a burrito and spilling beans on your clothes, or just flat out driving with your eyes closed, you may be prosecuted under the traffic offenses, but if you kill someone, as my friend has described, you will be prosecuted criminally for second-degree murder or manslaughter. Which do you think is more appropriate? As a former prosecutor, I can tell you I believe it is second-degree murder or manslaughter. There is no one, and I resent implication that anyone thinks that by opposition to this bill, someone says, I'm okay with texting while driving. What a false, tendentious argument. What I have on my desk, 1, 2, 3, 4 volumes of driving laws in this state. A violation of any one of those laws allows the police to take you away or cite you, depending on the extent of what you do. If you weave within your own lane, an officer can pull you over, whether it's for texting and driving, whether it's for inattention, whether it's for fatigue, whatever it may be, they can pull you over. But the reason that they can pull you over is because we have not tried to limit any one particular action other than dangerous driving behavior. This bill, this amendment is tangential necessarily to the idea of the way we enforce laws, which is dangerous driving behavior. Because it isn't necessarily the fact that you're texting and driving that causes the negligent behavior or the irresponsible behavior. Anything can cause that. We have laws to address that. This is an emotional, visceral attempt to try to further tighten and create a Napoleonic code-like traffic code. And that's a problem. That's a problem. So, let's examine some of the places in our own state where there have been texting ordinances enacted. One is our own city of Phoenix that we all happen to work in every day. Within a year after they passed their texting and driving, they'd been managed to be able to pull over 6 people for texting and driving. 6. Why? Because when you talk to police officers, this is an absolutely unenforceable idea. But it sure makes lawmakers and policymakers feel good. And I'm just suggesting to you, if you want to kill the underlying bill, you put this amendment on there. You'll do it hostilely, and you'll do it, and you won't accomplish what you hope to, which is a nirvana-like driving situation. So, with that, I oppose the Farley floor amendment.
Thank you, President Biggs. Chair recognizes Senator Farley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few comments regarding some things that I've heard so far. First off, I want to emphasize that there's nothing hostile about this amendment. This amendment is an attempt to be able to get a hearing for a bill that I have not been able to get a hearing on, which I think is very important to most people in Arizona. And I know that because I've had many of them call, email, and write my office. I know many of you have as well. I do support Senator Melvin's bill that did not make it to the floor. I wish that would have gone to the floor because it is the barest minimum of something we could have done. His bill simply said that in the first 6 months of a graduated driver's license, you cannot use a cell phone while driving. Great thing to do. It does help us get it into the driver's education curriculum. But the reason why that is not the only way to do things, the reason why you have to have an overall ban was underlined in a couple of days in the newspaper. A recent study came out that showed that adults text much more frequently than teenagers while they are driving. Again, the science tells us the problem here isn't teenagers. You would think it would be. Admittedly, inexperienced drivers are a problem because they shouldn't be doing anything besides concentrating on what they're doing on. But the real problem when it comes to texting is us. So we have to face up to that and decide whether or not we're going to set out a marker for what good behavior is. We've had a lot of bills go through that sets out a marker for what good behavior is in this state, and this is simply another one. My friend from Gilbert talked about generic laws, generic traffic laws. I would put it to you that if that were the case, we would not have DUI laws. DUIs are a very specific situation. It isn't just that somebody who's drunk and driving crosses over the center line and gets prosecuted under reckless driving laws. And they don't have to get into an accident before they get prosecuted. Our DUI laws are very strict, and we've made them stricter and stricter over the years. And there is much enforcement, which is part of why the city of Phoenix has not been ticketing many people for texting while driving. They have not had enforcement stings the way that we have DUI enforcement stings. The more that we get this law into place and the more we have enforcement stings, the more we're able to do that type of thing. Drunk driving is something that we as a society have determined is a specific activity, not a generic activity, which we think is dangerous enough to the public commonweal that we need to call it out and call it out repeatedly in many of those volumes of that 4-volume set of traffic laws and set specific things that are penalties for breaking that law. We do know the science says that when you are texting while driving, you're not even aware of what's out that window. When you're drunk and driving, it may be kind of fuzzy outside that window, but you're aware of some big things. When you're texting and driving, you're not looking at anything. There was a gentleman in Pinal County a couple of years ago who was texting while driving and ran into the side of a moving train. That's how out of it you are. I don't want those out of it people driving the lane next to me. And these people who've called my office about what's happened to them, they know what the result of that is. Yes, there are emotions involved with this, but this is no more emotions than there are in the drunk driving. When you talk to mothers against drunk driving, they're just as much against distracted driving. They get this is dangerous. We need to show that this is dangerous. And I encourage all of us to have the courage to stand up and do what is right for our citizens, whether or not the sponsor may agree or not agree to it, because our citizens agree to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Farley. The chair recognizes Senator Gallardo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of the Farley floor amendment to House Bill 2312. And Madam Chair, members, I actually remember the actual debate in the city of Phoenix when then former Mayor Phil Gordon proposed this idea about texting and driving. And I remember having the same discussion with Mayor Gordon at the time, and exactly that, how exactly are you going to enforce it and so on. And we had a very interesting conversation. But since the city of Phoenix passed it, one of the things that you got to admit, if anything, it's been a deterrent. It really has. It sent a message to every driver throughout the city of Phoenix that talks about how dangerous this is. And you will be cited if caught. It sends a message to every young driver and adult drivers, particularly nowadays when we're glued to our cell phones, folks. We're on it with Facebook and Twitter, and we're constantly on our phones. So it's more than just texting, folks. And we're all guilty of it. Let's be honest. We're all guilty of it. But I think it does send that message that this is a dangerous way of driving, and we shouldn't be doing it. And everyone in the state should be focused on the road, should be focused on what they're doing. and not be texting, not be looking at Facebook or on Twitter. And we shouldn't be checking emails because we all do it. And I think it sends that message that it's wrong and we shouldn't be doing it. And I think it then becomes a deterrent. And more than that, I think it just makes our roads more safer. And if it can prevent one person from being killed on a road, I think it's a good idea. I do appreciate the senator from District 11 and all the work he has done. I do know this is definitely a passion of his, and I hope he continues on working on passing such legislation. But I think we have to look outside our young people and start focusing on everybody, including the adults that are out on the road, that this is wrong and it's bad and we shouldn't be doing. So I ask members to support the Farley floor amendment, and let's make that message loud and clear that we want to keep our roads safe. We want people to focus on the road and not focus on the phones. And I ask members to support the Farley amendment.
Thank you, Senator Gallardo. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. The question before you is the Farley floor amendment to House Bill 2271. Those in favor, please vote aye. I'm sorry, 2312, excuse me. All those in favor, please vote aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. It appears the noes have it, do have it, so ordered. Division has been called. All those in favor of the Farley amendment, please rise. Okay, you may be seated. All those opposed to the Farley floor amendment, please rise. Members, by your votes of 12 ayes, 15 noes, the motion has failed.